Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 3 with Black Ice 8.5. So let's continue this. I think we're moving along much quicker than we did with Germany, because without Third Reich events the game just isn't as interesting in the peacetime period. I'm not saying the war is going to be any more or less interesting, but the peace is not as interesting. So if I were playing this on my own, I'd be making events up as I play it. I'd stop, make a few events, play some more, stop, make some events. You can tell I often take a long time playing the game. But you don't want me to pause for an hour or two while you stare at an unmoving screen. I know you could fast forward, but still. We've got enough supplies, so let's go right down to the... No. Let's actually go a little negative, not hugely negative. Okay, broadcasting events. That's great. So now we freeze up a slot. We'll improve the artillery brigades. We're looking to have a small army, but once we get a bit more infrastructure, production capabilities built up, then we will upgrade and we will try to have a very elite army. As in fairly heavily motorized. Looking for some more 36 techs to focus on right now. Don't know how much. I know we're going to have some carrier air group. Maybe we'll come back to that because I'm not seeing too many of the 36. Oh, we can improve a bunch of these. Let's go with that. So far there's been no events for us to intervene. In Spain on the Republican side. France did fairly heavily. Nothing like Germany or Italy did on the nationalist, or the Soviets did on the Republican side. But France did fairly heavily in a very covert sort of way, allowing a lot of arms to come across the border and that kind of thing, and free flow of people. Britain did too, but even more quiet. But France and particularly Britain were trying to appear to be a container, a neutral type, uninvolved. So they're getting near to the taking it. Okay. Submarine batteries and Great War analysis. Okay, we're going to let Great War analysis continue. Submarine batteries are grayed out. So we're going to go improve torpedo tubes. I know these just say we're adding extra costs but if you come over here, you can see to get the next thing we need to improve those. So let's go with the longer researched one right there. So that will help us. Give them money for fuel. How bad are we off? Barely, so we'll go yes. How are we doing on convoy? Still plenty, okay. Attritional warfare. Yeah, we're still not up very good. Cavalry exploitation. Okay, that's maxed out. No, we're not going to be doing too much airborne. We're going to be mostly defensive, at least until we get the Americans in on this. We're giving supplies from shore. And Canada, okay. No. That one's fine. Well, the nations we're active in are fairly well filled up. Okay. Medium popularity. Okay, so that should boost things, particularly like research. Improve mobile arms. No, thank you. No, thank you. I don't know how much we're at. We just lost that, but I copied a bunch of because I moved a few events over, and I just moved all the Third Reich events images over, except for just a few of them that I knew, and I forgot to not move this one. So this one is tailored for Germany, the German broadcasting. But let's start the new season there. And that means this will happen. And we have, of course, the 3 classic choices. But because we already have small news and politics and entertainment shows. Well, heroic tales will help with national unity, but not terribly much yet. Ruling party support. I think we'll wait. I think we're going to go for this for the economic boosts of less consumer good demands. Well, armor plate thickness must have happened. Okay, yes, we're going to stop that. Continue at this time. Well, let's go with CAG fighter, keep our fighters on our aircraft alive a bit more. Basically, the Soviet strategy, they wanted to win in Spain, of course. They wanted to spread communism as well as have a, let's give it the best term, an ally flanking in the West against Western aggression. When the Spanish Civil War broke out, and it really did sort of break out, there were, particularly on both sides, but on the Republican side, a plethora of factions. There were, anarchist groups. There were what we might generally sort of consider Republican type groups. They wanted a moderate democracy, that kind of thing. But then there were also a lot of not just socialist, but as well as there were a lot of socialist elements, and then there were a lot of communist elements. The communist elements sort of broke into two larger sort of groups. The Trotskyites and the Stalinists. I don't know if they would have considered themselves Stalinists, but they were de facto in that they were pro the Soviet Union. When the Soviets really started to give a lot of materiel support to the Republicans, they very much controlled who got the support, what units it went to. And part of the way they would do this is simply say, hey, well, if you don't give XYZ units these tanks or these machine guns or whatever, we'll stop sending you more. And they also made sure their people, their supporters, both local Spanish as well as sort of, if you will, Soviet volunteers, made sure that they were given key leadership positions within the Republican Army and interior police type, security police, so that they would keep their units friendly to them, well equipped, and normally in the reserve. And then they would send in the anarchists, particularly the Trotskyite, and because they had infiltrated heavily into the hierarchy, give them the orders to attack. Because these units, well, they might be initially for the attack given enough ammunition for their weapons, but they weren't given nearly as heavy in the machine guns and the supporting elements of it, so that they would go in and attack and take heavy casualties. And if the attack was looking like it's going to succeed, then they would send in their Soviet equipped reserves and really get into the fighting. But the other units had already been bled white, pardon the pun, and then they would come in and sort of clean up and fight that out. So what this was doing is these different factions sort of had their own recruiting methods and their own recruit supply lines. Well, who are you going to join? A bunch of raggedy ass anarchists or Trotskyite idealists who don't have uniforms, as in they're all in the same gear. They don't have much in the supplies of ammunition. They have very poor weapons choices. Or are you going to join a unit that is well equipped, has supporting arms, looks sharp, and that they're all wearing the same colored jackets or whatever? Not that they were necessarily highly uniformed, but uniformed as in similar. Who are you going to join? You're going to join the better equipped units. So as the war got on, they got larger and more powerful, and the other units were being killed off. And the Soviets very much within their own units, their own supported units, controlled the message, would shoot people who were defeatists, as they would call them, or spies, or other sorts of people. So you didn't get any sort of ideological questioning, and you didn't get any operational questioning of why are we not attacking and having these other people attack, because they very much controlled it. And you can read some books on the subject of Spain if you really just think I'm spreading pure anti-Soviet propaganda. Now this is really sort of how they did this. So they ended up in control. Now the downside to this is that a lot of battles were lost because either when they were attacking or often also defending, these reserve units were never brought in to fight. So it was these other units that were slowly being worn away, and then they would lose positions, lose ground before the Soviet supplied units. And I keep wanting to emphasize supply because there were Soviet agents, there were Soviet special police, and there were Soviet pilots, but there were, to the best of my knowledge, and I'm not knowing entirely details, but there weren't large volunteer units from the Soviet Union. Not saying there wasn't some in the international brigades, but it wasn't large. It was more specialist, like the German complement. They were down in the low hundreds for the German ground force total, and most of them were doing training missions, not doing combat missions. That's sort of, and there was probably still even more than that, Soviets, but they weren't like Spain, Italy, who actually sent in regular divisions to fight in Spain. So Italy was sort of more. So when I'm talking about Soviet equipped units, and so that they were always losing ground because the Stalinist command group would rather lose the war than allow the Republicans to win if they didn't control the post-war Spanish government. At least that's my assessment. Now, maybe they still wouldn't have won just because of the close proximity of Italy and the willingness to send in complete Italian army divisions, and the willingness of Germany to send in even more and better aircraft and that type of support. They might have been unwilling to. And I do believe, had the Soviets sent in real Soviet divisions, you would have seen France, at least, severely reacting to that, in that they very well would have enforced blockades, very well may have, as strange as may sound, send in French army units, not necessarily to support the nationalists, but to deal with these, because and France is a divided government, so I may be wrong in this, but I don't think France wanted to see a Soviet army occupied republic in Spain. That would have just been going a little too far, I think. So that sort of limited things there. So, okay. Well, back on the stormtrooper tactics. Sounds weird for the English, and it sort of is, in that they really didn't do that. But we're going to take this anyways and continue that. Okay, we give them money for fuel. No, thank you. So while as you can see, this Republicans have cleaned up all of their sort of rear area internal problems. The Nationalists haven't, because that's what this is in essence. And obviously here too, which means they're diverting troops from the front. Okay, twin engine airframe advance. I think that would be grayed out. Yep. And medium fuel tank. Okay. I know I'm pushing this early, but I don't think I'm going to push others just yet. Fighters are the important thing. To make sure we control the skies over Britain. That is most assuredly a critical element. At least to my way of thinking. Well, it's still 37. I know we're almost there. But we'll switch over. Yeah, proper escorts are all pretty well done. So let's look at some of these operational elements. Improve direct fire units. We're doing production, okay. Austria, give them money for fuel. No, thank you. Monumental architecture. Not this one. Okay. Now let's continue with looking for improvements. Here. Oh, that'll help. Production out a bit. No, thank you. No, thank you. And giant infrastructure projects. Yes. It all helps. Even a few percent, and even with these low numbers, it helps. The Soviets. The Soviets offering, we give them money for energy. We don't need energy. Now we're sort of right on the edge. Maybe we should build some buildings for that, but no. No. Mass. Yeah, we're looking pretty good here, but we're going to start this one. We will hold a Conservative Party rally, it looks like. Okay, I know this isn't quite as fancy as a Nuremberg Party rally, but okay. That helps us. And we'll lose some supplies, but okay. That will help. Italy annexed Abyssinia. Why am I not surprised? Okay. South Africa. Alright, and Finland. No. No, that didn't last very long. What are we doing for rare materials? Okay, let's see if we can sell some of those. Doesn't look like anybody needs any. Okay, well, I'd rather do that as Britain then. Sell supplies, but oh well. Yeah, we'll do that. Persia. We'll do that as well. It's a small minor amount. Maybe we can counteract German activity there. Of course, they don't have TRE, so they don't have all the cool stuff. I just really felt that I'm just very unsure whether TRE and the AI would make Germany easier or harder. A human, I think, can deal with it better, and it still may make it harder to play. But that's just a challenge the human can handle. But yeah, that's why there's just a handful of events from it here. Okay. Fire solutions control. Isn't that here? Which is it? Let me see. Yeah, convoy escort, fire solution control systems. Is it? Oh, here. Okay, it's this one. Yeah, well, let's. This is also for the cruisers. Oh, that's, see, hit these wrong buttons. Wish they weren't so close to each other. Damage control. Okay, so most of these were just. Okay, we're gonna let those go. So that gives us a little bit to play with here. Or just a few days away. Oh, we have a decision available. Yes, we will do the Bank for International Settlement. 5% leadership. 5% IC improvement, most assuredly. 200 supplies. Yes, we just get the smaller events because our, at least is my understanding of it, economy isn't as large as Germany, so there's a smaller event version. Let's get that made as well. And they scale that so that, you know, a minor nation has the events. It's not the same effect as a major one. Well, let's look for some 1937 techs here that are going to be coming available very soon. Well, they're available, but we won't be pushing the... Let's go with the tank tech here. Do a short-barreled high-explosive gun. Now looks like we are improving our position some. Okay. No, we don't want energy. Oh, we've expanded our economy, so... You know, I don't want to be importing energy. Newcastle is definitely known for its coal, so we're going to do that. Welsh coal mine looks good. There. Maybe slightly overdoing it, but I think they're fairly cheap. Now, 5. And they should be also done by March as well. So, not that long. So I'd rather do that than... Okay, you can have the supplies. I'd rather do that than have more convoys carrying more coal during the war particularly. Okay. The second Moscow show trial. You can read the details, or some of them there. It's just more of the same terror from Stalin to maintain control internally, and the Soyuz is launched. Soyuz. Entertainment shows. Okay, well, we'll lose a lot of money there, but let's see, does people want to buy? Okay, cool. Since we just spent a lot of money. And the start of the year. Okay. Now. We're looking at maybe getting one of these national highways, mining, which would help us a lot with the crude oil as well. Railroad tycoon, architecture. So we're going to want one of those. And we may also see about that. So what we're going to do is We've got a bunch of stuff here. Okay. We're going to continue with political spying. Gain more ruling party support. We're going to go for economic boost. We're going to go long term. Helps our money but reduces our ICs. Annual national focus. The economy helps us, but didn't. Well, that 15% is good. But this is 37, then we'll have 38, and then 39s. Well, let's do this now. And then maybe next year we'll go back to economic, because maybe by that time we'll have built enough factories that it will have given us better. Well, that's a lot, so let's choose another. Let's just go back and see what okay, well, I think if we come back here, yeah. Let's see what the economy would do for us this time. No, just one plant. That's just not going to be enough. Choose another. I got a plethora of plants, many plants. Oh, well, we have, okay. Farm mechanization, mining, we're at highways. So we got to remember that we're England and not Germany. %, IC efficiency and supply throughput. We're not going to have that. I don't think supply throughput problems that Germany does, particularly obviously we won't be fighting deep in the Soviet Union. And mining, the manpower is a negative, but we've been building it quite a bit, obviously because we haven't been building anything. ICs, it means, yeah, that's not good, but it allows us to get more energy, crude oil, and metal. That just means less imports. I mean, we may still be importing our crude oil from overseas possessions as well as any of the other things, but railways, that's IC efficiency, but it's only 2%. I think we're going to go with mining now, and probably next time see about the national manpower, the farm mechanization. That's how I'm looking at this. So let's go with the new mines. Okay, leaves lots of supplies and some money. And we're going to go Royal Air Force here because I like what I'm talking about. We want to, when we get ready to start building, we'll have a lot of aircraft factories that will help that along. And yes, we want to annex Egypt. What does this say? In order to better defend the Suez, it is wise to let the United Kingdom control the Egyptian troops in their territories. Yes. That is somewhat the historical case, not entirely. The Egyptian army never left Egypt during the war. It had one brief battle I think maybe down here in Maruth, or no, it was in Siwa, I think. Down here in the Siwa plate, which isn't really anything in this game much, but there's the Oasis. There was a defensive engagement, and all of its like heavy equipment, its artillery and that kind of equipment, was all World War I surplus. Very much nothing new. And a lot of their junior officers were very anti-British, somewhat pro-Axis. I don't know what they thought they were going to get by being pro-Axis, because even though they were probably a bit more pro-German than being pro-Italian, Germany was just going to hand it all over to Italy, and Italy was going to rule it, in my opinion, more directly than the British did, because the British did have sort of a an Egyptian layer of government between themselves and the general people. So they did allow, it was much more than what we've just been seeing with Egypt as a country. I mean, it wasn't anything like that, but it wasn't nearly as direct rule as some other places. So sort of that kind of situation. And some of the prominent junior officers at the time were Nasser and Sadat, who, overthrew the king once the British were sort of already leaving, and set up their regime. So yeah, we should be doing this, obviously. And we get a revolt. We get some Australians. Well, let's send the Australians down to beat up on the, beat up on the rebels. Yeah, let's just send them down here for the moment. Something fun to do. And we want to hit this new projects, which will give us a cooldown period, so that we can do the new ones sometime. Okay, does that put that into our production queue? Yes, okay, so we're the HMS Prince of Wales, which we're not actively producing, but we're in the production queue. And the King George V, go ahead. And national recruiting policy, we're going to continue in the balanced approach. Very well. That, I think, is because we have a bigger army now with all this community in Egypt. But we should also have more factories. Yeah. Okay, now. New national buildings. So, this is going to be a longish episode, I can already tell. Okay, now we're down into these buildings here. Imperial seat of government. That looks nice. Ruling party support, national unity, territorial pride, leadership. That does sound nice right now. That's good, but we're not at war yet, so we don't need the organization bonuses, meaning we can potentially do this later. That's also very nice, advanced education investment. So to me, it's either advanced education or imperial seat of government. I want the national unity and the ruling party support right now. We can come back just because we are facing a much more fragmented government than we see with the Germany at this time. So, sorry about that. Because my first inclination is the so before we click that, let's see what's over here. My first inclination is advanced universities to do more research to get more stuff going. Okay, Royal Good Show. That sounds sort of what I would be. Good Show. Sort of as an American, presuming the English would be saying, but okay. Armaments Factory in Dorchester. Royal Ordnance Factory, Maltby. Okay, we want that, most assuredly. We have the mining effect, minus manpower and ICs, but a lot more resources. And we have now entertainment shows instead of small entertainment shows, which doubles the lowering of consumer goods needed and gives us 2% more money, which is nice. And we're going with the imperial seat of government. Yes, we're gaining dissent. I still don't understand, other than they simply want us to spend. Okay. We're going to continue to supply ourselves fully. Spend more consumer, high seas on consumer goods to balance that out, I'm guessing. Okay, well, we're going to end the episode here. Thanks so much for viewing. Thanks for liking the episodes. Do appreciate it. And hey, please, like I've said, I've never played this, played England through before. So love to hear your views. If you think I'm messing up, better to tell me now. Unless you just want to see me crash and burn, and that could maybe be fun for you. But that's up to you guys. See you next time.